record. Hang on.
Recording in progress.
I don't hear you.
Welcome, everybody. We are here. We are back with another amazing interview, and I'm so excited to have my guest on. I really enjoy doing these interviews, guys, especially in video format, which is pretty rare lately. I do apologize, but only because I've been doing so much radio, so I've been focusing a lot on that, but I have been doing a lot more video interviews, which is great. As you guys saw, I've uploaded quite a few in the last couple of weeks, and I got more coming. Lots of great interviews lined up, but so just stick with it, guys. Stick with me. I'm doing, like I said, you want to check out a lot of the interviews I'm doing is at Revolution Radio, which is at freedomslips.com. And you can find me there on Saturday evenings from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio B. That's the Crypt, Rick, and Jonathan show with my amazing co-host, Jonathan Wright. And I'm also going to be there on Monday, which is also today, the day I'm doing this interview. And that will be also from 6 till 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But that's in Studio A, and that's just the Crypt, Rick, I've Been Thinking show. So please check it out, guys, especially if you love radio. I love radio because I'm not censored there. And that's the thing I love about it the most. And doing these video interviews on the platforms that we do them, you got to be so careful, guys, as you guys all know, because if you say the wrong word, they'll flag your video, they'll pull it down, and then they start striking your channel down. So it's a lot different. I find a lot less freedom when you're doing it this way. But I do enjoy having the one-on-one in video format. So I'm going to keep doing them as long as they let me. And so like I said, I have a great guest. I don't want to babble too long at the beginning here. And so I'm just going to go ahead and welcome my guest here. One second. There we go. Welcome. This is Jeanice Barcelo. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right, Rick. How are you doing? Glad to be here with you.
Oh yeah, it was a great. Thank you for being here, taking the time to come and chat once again. I had you on the radio show just a few weeks back, and it was a great couple hours. You dropped a lot of information, and I first found out about your work through Rob and Jennifer's YouTube channel, Natural Law Birth, and you did an amazing interview there. You guys covered a lot of different topics, and and I learned a lot from Rob and Jennifer's presentation for their first funnel conference and kind of the whole birthing process. As a guy, I don't think men really understand it. I mean, we're men, right? So I think it's fascinating what you talk about and what I've learned in the process. And so, I mean, where would you like to start? I know that you have definitely written some books, which I do want to give a shout out to, guys, because Jeanice has written some amazing books. She has written a book called Birth Trauma and the Dark Side of Modern Medicine. She's also written Dark Side of Prenatal Ultrasound. And her third book is Are Wireless Devices Really Safe? And also, I want to mention before we get into this that you can find her at Republic Broadcasting Network. So make sure you check that out, guys. I will leave links in the description for all of this. And so, I mean, where would you like to start, Jeanice? I mean, we can start with, there's so many topics.
I want to start with your comment about fathers not knowing about the birth process, because
Okay.
I'm about to give a webinar on the 14th of this month regarding the father's role during the childbearing year. And the fact that the father's role has been usurped by the medical establishment. And if the male power is not able to be enacted during the birth of children, then it is likely the relationship will break down after the birth of a child. So understanding the father's role is critical, not just during childbirth, but from the preconception phase through conception, pregnancy, birth, and parenting. Fathers need to understand their part. They've been relegated to the sidelines, yes, made to feel as if they're like, some kind of sideline participant.
Mm-hmm.
And this is nonsense. Fathers should be front and center during the birth of their children. When a baby is born, nobody, I mean nobody, not a midwife, certainly not a doctor or a nurse, should touch that baby,
Right.
except the father and the mother, especially during the first hour after birth. So we are doing everything wrong
Wow.
by going into a hospital. to give birth to our children and allowing them to take over this process. So I enjoy reminding men.
I think it's important, Janice. I really do because I think a lot of guys they really don't really. I mean, I think they take an active role in some ways, but I mean they don't really understand the whole process. I know I never did. And then when you start, but I always thought that it was really weird and an unnatural thing to bring for a woman to go to a hospital. And the only reason I say that is because for thousands of years, women have been giving birth and they didn't have to go to a hospital. There was something that was done in the home. It was done usually with family and community around. And when you start really looking into that, it's really fascinating. Like, you know, if it was you're in a tribe situation, it was a big deal and everybody was involved. And it was a very a group thing, a group event and a very powerful event. And now they've kind of, like you said, they've taken it and made it so unnatural for where they're putting women, and then even with the prenatal care, as we're going to get into with ultrasounds and that, everything they're doing seems to be destructive right from the start, right from conception. I've heard you say.
Well, it's even preconception because they've manipulated our sexual behavior, our sexual attitudes, and our morality.
Mm-hmm.
Completely manipulated it. Since the 1950s, they've been actively social engineering us through our sexual activity. And so the way that we're conceiving children is a major problem.
Okay.
And people need to look at this. Our behavior, where we have come to believe that having multiple orgasms with many different people is what's going to lead us to a happy life. This is actually the antithesis of what will lead us to a happy life. And it's a complete Luciferian reversal.
Right.
You see, the more sex you have with the more different people, the further away you're going to get from the possibility of creating an enduring, loving union.
Right.
Yeah.
I get that.
And on top of this, the porn industry has infiltrated the lives of very young children, 9 years old. By the time that these kids are 16, the boys can't get an erection with a real woman
Mm-hmm.
because they have programmed their neurology to get off by jacking off to an image on a screen.
Right.
So their whole neurological programming is for demonic activity. See, pornography is demonic, it's satanic. When they film pornography, they gather on the set.
Oh, I think you froze up, Janice. We will just give it a second here, guys. I'm not sure if you froze up, Janice, or your video did. Oh, I hope we can get her back, guys. This has happened before, so let's see if we can get her back. I really hope so because I mean, she's got such powerful information that I want to make sure you guys.
Recording stopped.
Okay. Well, let me just go back to this logo here.
Recording in progress.
Oh, there we go. We got her back. I didn't even have to stop the video.
So weird. Most people are, have in their minds the images that they've seen in pornography.
Mm-hmm.
So they're bringing incubi and succubi into their bedrooms and into the sex that they're having with their alleged beloved.
Right.
And into the creation of children. So are we surprised when a 6-year-old is discovered to be addicted to porn and tells his parents that the voices keep telling him to watch it and he can't stop?
Wow. That's... Whew. I mean, it's crazy, and you're so right too. Because as we were speaking before we started recording, I was saying that when you start diving into it and you realize that, and you pay attention is another thing. I think it's become so common in TV shows and everywhere. They're sexualizing everything, and I just think that kind of people have got numb to it or just used to seeing it. But when you're aware of it, it's everywhere. And then you see the access of porn that's on the internet now. I mean, and then I think of the dating, Janice. I also think of the dating apps because I have friends that are dating in the dating scene, and it's all done on apps now. Like it, and it's really weird. It's like this hookup culture that it just shocks me because I come from a time, and I'm sure you do, where you had to date somebody, and you kind of had to get to know them, and you went for dinner, and you did all these things. Dave, it's kind of these apps have kind of bypassed all of that, and now it's just kind of it's like you're flicking through images of people, find somebody that you like, and then chances are you're going to be hooking up really quick. So we've lost this connection for sure.
It's a pornographic approach to meeting people because you're meeting people based on images,
Right. Yep.
right? It's very, very disturbing, and it's purposeful, and they promote it because it brings people into the Luciferian realm,
Right.
and it harvests their energy. There's a tremendous amount of energy in what we call sexual energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually not sexual. It is now because we've made it that way. But this is life creating energy.
Right.
Okay, so we have turned it on a Luciferian head, basically, and made it about fleeting physical pleasure. And we have exchanged this fleeting physical gratification for enduring human love.
Right.
We believe that if we have a lot of orgasms, that we'll be happy. It's bullshit. I'm going to be very frank.
I want you to be. Yeah.
It's a complete lie because you're not going to be happy. I don't care how many orgasms you have. If we are not able to have enduring human love, to have the preservation of love in our families, we're not going to be happy.
Mm-hmm. I
And
agree.
there's so many false unions occurring right now because people have no coding for love. They're imprinting because of the way they've been conceived. In other words, they're conceived as a side effect of fleshy indulgence. Almost all of us are side effects.
Yep.
We were not consciously called forth. Certainly, our loving creator was not called into the process of the union to create a special life. So parents just take whatever they get and they have sex and they call it lovemaking, which is a mockery of love and a debasement of God, what they're doing. And in comes this baby because they're dealing with life creating energy and they don't want the baby half the time. So they kill their babies. You know what I mean? It's so dark. It's so unbelievable.
Yep.
What is happening. When you have sex without being open to life, the list of social problems that occur is endless. Basically, abortion, unwanted children, teenage pregnancies, fatherless children, single parents, pedophilia, incest, adultery, rape, divorce. I could name, the list goes on and on and on.
Yep.
Because of what we're doing. Now, what we're doing is a function of mind control. And I didn't understand what I'm saying to you now 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, I was extremely promiscuous, extremely out there with my sexual activity. So I'm not approaching this conversation from a judgment place.
Right.
What I'm saying to you now is from experience. The orgasms are not going to lead you to happiness. You're going to be miserable if you continue doing this. You're going to end up with the wrong person who is not the one for you. You're going to make children who are a product of a false union and a side effect of fleshy gratification, which immediately cuts their link with the divine mind and will ensure their suffering for their entire life. That's the bottom line.
Right. And all the things that you mentioned in that list are what you hear so much about going on in society now. You've just
Mhm.
echoed what there a lot of people are talking about. That's all coming forward now.
And it should have been obvious 50 years ago
Right.
when all the divorce started, when all the single parents and all the fatherless children. I mean, how many fathers in our world have actually been able to bond with their children?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a low number because they're conceiving their children with the wrong people, number one, and they're allowing pornography into it. They're going into hospitals where they're not part of the process, generally speaking,
Right. Yep.
and they cannot bond with their children properly, and their marriage breaks down. There's a whole lot to this. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
very, very deep, deep
It's definitely. I've always
conversation.
said it's a multi-headed hydra we're dealing with, and you're so right when you say that. There's so many moving parts to it, and I try to, and it's hard when you start to talk about it because it's kind of they're coming at us from so many different ways, and then but when you learn about how they're affecting, like they're getting at what we're speaking about, like they're about the birthing process and about conceiving. They've really attacked in every like right from the start, and it's scary, and because it's like I said just a second ago, all the things that you mentioned are what's rampant going on right now, and we're starting to hear about it. And you see all the like you just said, parents that they usually there's not both parents in the house, and then another part that bothers me too, Jeanice, that I see is that okay, so even if you do have parents in the house, then how often are they in the house? Because then they're working so much to try to even afford to put a roof over their head, so they're further less contact from their children. It just seems that this war is to really separate the parents from the children at the youngest age possible.
Hmm. Or they're on their phones, ignoring their children. I can't stand it
Yep.
when I see parents on their phones, especially mothers, with a baby right next to her and she's on her phone, like get a clue. Get a clue, people. You're irradiating your very young children with your toxic devices and you're ignoring your children
Yep.
so that you can look for a like on your Facebook post or your TikTok accounts. It's just unbelievable how sick we are spiritually
I agree.
and how unbonded we are to our children, to the people that we make children with. We have to
Absolutely.
see this and we have to get control of it. It's as you were talking, I'm thinking, this whole thing flashes before my mind of fathers in a hospital birthing their children. And now the doctors say to them, would you like to clamp the umbilical cord?
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to cut the cord? Would you be the one to cut off your baby's life support system? Would you like to do that? Would you like to cut off your baby's oxygen supply and give us their cord blood so that we can drink it and get an adrenochrome high? Dad, would you like to do that? Would you like to initiate your baby into this Luciferian world? Would you like to be responsible for that? This is what's happening. They're not going to say it to you the way I just did. They're going to make it like it's a really great thing for you to cut the cord. What an honor. The level of deception and evil and abuse is unbelievable. And what is the baby going to be thinking of its father
Right. Right. Yeah.
who made the mistake of thinking he was doing a good thing?
Wow.
And just the opposite is the case. That cord blood belongs in your baby's body. When a baby is born, the baby comes out, it's attached to an umbilical cord that's attached to the placenta that's still inside the mother's body. And there's blood coming through the cord that's intended to go into your baby. That blood contains not only the baby's oxygen supply, The baby is not breathing in the womb.
Right.
It gets all of its oxygen from the blood, and the same should be happening when it first comes out of the womb. It does not need to breathe. It's receiving everything it needs through the blood. In addition to containing stem cells and vital nutrients that your baby needs for the proper development of its immune system, for the proper activation of its lungs, all manner of necessary things are being stolen from that baby through the theft of the umbilical cord blood, which happens at every single hospital birth that I am aware of without fail. They may be willing to do what they call delayed cord clamping for 2 or 3 minutes. You shouldn't cut that freaking cord, in my opinion, for at least 2 or 3 hours.
Oh, really? Okay.
And in some cases more. People do what's called a lotus birth. Now they're beginning to understand. A lotus birth is when you leave the baby and the placenta and the umbilical cord attached. Okay? And you
Okay.
leave it until the umbilical cord falls off on its own, 3, 5, 7, however many days later. That's called a lotus birth.
Well, I never heard that one. I never heard that.
Well, people are getting hip to the relationship between the baby and its placenta. In indigenous cultures, and there's many cultures where there's an awareness of the importance of the placenta, sort of like a guardian angel
Mm-hmm.
to the baby, or a spiritual twin that's there to look after the baby. You know, in the physical realm that we're in, we know that the placenta will break down its own body, for example, if the baby's undernourished. It
Okay,
will
I see.
and it also attempts to siphon off toxins from the mother's body to prevent them from going into the baby, which it can no longer do because of all the wireless pulses attacking the amniotic container and blowing holes so that everything gets through. Okay, from
Yeah.
the mother to the baby. So the placenta can only do so much, but its job is to protect the baby. And in some indigenous cultures, the fathers have very, very strict protocols that they have to follow in order to protect the umbilical cord and the placenta of their baby, because they are aware that if the wrong people get their hands on it, the baby can be negatively influenced throughout its life.
Wow. So,
Do you
so I'm
understand?
gathering the reason then that they want to cut it as quick as possible, and once again, I'm assuming Jeanice that this is a multi-headed reason that they're doing it, but one of the reasons is to break the connection from the parent to the child as quickly as possible.
I think it's more that they're after the blood
Mm-hmm.
for a number of reasons. Okay, not the least of which is that they drink it. They inject it into their bodies to keep themselves, what they believe is going to keep them younger.
Right.
Yeah, by using young blood. You'll hear a lot of people talking about this in the elite circles.
Yep.
Um, about
Stem
the use
cells are
of young.
coming. They're talking more about stem cells all the time.
They're going to tell the parents, you should store your baby's stem cells in case your baby gets sick. Guess what? If you give your baby the stem cells from the beginning instead of stealing them from the baby, your baby's going to have a powerful immune system and won't get sick.
Makes
See,
sense.
they want your genetics. They want your DNA. They want your life energy, your source. The blood it contains spiritual potency and information that they are harvesting and feeding off of. So it's more than just a simple separation, although that's part of it.
Right. It just goes much darker, as you just
It's
mentioned.
much darker. It's much, much darker.
Right.
This is
Wow.
why you should never let them touch you or your children during pregnancy and birth. Avoid these creatures like the plague. This is an anti-human agenda. This is an anti-life agenda. They want us dead.
Agreed.
They're trying to kill our children.
Yeah.
It's no joke.
It's
It's
no
very,
joke.
very serious. And we're at a very advanced stage of this game right now. So if we don't get clued in, our bloodlines don't have a chance for survival. There is so much going on.
Yep. Yeah, and I try to tell people that, and as soon as I find some people, I bring up spirituality, you bring that into the conversation, they automatically shut off, or they kind of look at it from like a biblical point of view or something, and I try to say no, that's not what I'm talking about. But I do tell people that this all the time, that we're in a spiritual war, that's what's going on right now, and we have to get hip to what they're doing, and so, yeah, I thank you for, this is so powerful what you're saying, and I think people need to hear it. I'm glad that you're being blunt about it, because, I mean, the time of just kind of glossing over things, I think, is well past, and that's how we kind of got in this mess. So we have to speak very openly about it and bluntly, so people kind of get it.
And people have to understand, if they're too dense to get that there is a satanic force in operation on this earth, that wants people dead, that is actively seeking to destroy people's lives, and especially the lives of our children, then we can kiss them goodbye. Do you know what I'm saying? They're gone. They're toast. Their kids are done. There's no way that their bloodlines are going to continue. There is a Luciferian force in action, big time, right now.
I agree.
And it has a very serious agenda for the destruction of everything that is good and beautiful in our world. Not just mankind, although mankind is at the top of the list of what they want to destroy, but all living things, all of God's creations, the real creator. I'm not talking about the biblical imposter masquerading as the creator. I'm not talking about that vile, angry, jealous, misogynistic, abusive creature that commands people to cut off the most sensitive part of their infant son's penis to create a covenant with him, or that enjoys animal and human sacrifice, especially the sacrifice of infants, or the one that tells his followers to go and steal other people's land and take their women and children as booty. Okay, folks, that's not the creator. Right. It's time to spiritually grow up and to see you've been bamboozled. You have no concept of the real creator. You have no connection to the creator's world because you're on your Luciferian devices all day. Your mind is totally muddled by the dark side.
Definitely, yeah. I've learned a lot about the devices, which I do want to get into, Jeanice, because I think that's a great place to go. But before I do, I would like, just because we're talking right now, so I'm sure that I know that women have been brainwashed into believing that they have to have their birth at a hospital, that's the only way you can do it. It's the safe way to do it. I know what you're going to say, that definitely stay away from the hospitals, and you do not need to do it at a hospital, that there is do it away from there, correct?
Let me interject here.
Okay.
If you were born in a hospital, goes for mom or dad, it is almost 100% assured that you have unresolved birth trauma in your system. It is never wise to try to do a home birth if you have unresolved birth trauma. The reason being that unresolved birth trauma is likely to activate during pregnancy and birth and escalate during the birth of your children. So it's very important for people to be aware that A, they likely have birth trauma, and B, to seek a way to heal that birth trauma. Now, I could spend 3 to 5 hours talking about birth trauma
Mm-hmm.
and what that looks like. But people can go to my website at birthofanewearth.com and view some of my video interviews to get a sense of what I'm talking about with birth trauma.
Okay.
It's very important to seek healing for the birth trauma before you give birth, and ideally before you conceive a child. Because if you've got birth trauma, chances are you also have prenatal trauma, meaning you may have been conceived haphazardly as a side effect of fleshly gratification. You may have been in a womb where you were not wanted or where abortion was considered. You may have been in a toxic womb where your mother was exposing you to toxic things, not because she hates you, although she might in the world we're living in, you know what I'm saying? But because she doesn't know any better, she's eating poorly, she's surrounded by wireless devices, she is eating genetically modified foods, perhaps using toxic chemicals on her body, on her hair, on her skin. She may be exposed to toxic cleaning products or pesticides in her life. She may be smoking, she may be drinking, she may be taking drugs. Okay, or dad. This is not just all on the mom. The mom is responsible for the creation of the physical body of the child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but the dad has an even more important role, in my opinion, during gestation, because the father is responsible for the creation of the child's spiritual development.
Okay. That
And he
makes
has
sense.
no idea. He has no idea. So if he's in the Bible, okay, reading about this God that wants penises chopped up in order to create a covenant with him, we got a problem.
I agree.
We got a big problem. And we need to be aware of this. You don't mutilate children's genitals. This is a big no-no, friends. I don't care who tells you to do it.
Yep.
You need to wake up. You need to step out of this mind control. And this is part of what I do, is to snap people out of it unrelentingly.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got to come out of it. You got to see this is extreme child abuse and genital torture and mutilation. It must end. I don't care what your God says. If your God tells you to cut off your infant son's foreskin, you need to question the God that you are worshiping. It's very simple.
Yeah, I've since we did the radio interview, because we touched on this. We got you did a great job at really breaking it down near the end of the radio show about what we're speaking about circumcision and that. And I remember talking to people, because I like to feel where people are at by having a discussion with them, and so I kind of bring up topics. And what I keep hearing from people saying is that babies, that if they get circumcised, they don't remember it, and I've always had a problem with that. When somebody says that the child, they're so young, they won't remember that it was even done to them. And I'm like, I really always had trouble believing that, because what is their first experience in this world? Is they're born and then they do this to them. And I'm like, this has got to leave some trauma, even
It's
if they don't
called
remember.
it's called an imprint.
Right. Right.
Okay, because it's not a memory in language, since the children are not speaking
Okay.
in a language yet. It is an imprint. It is an imprint of betrayal, of abandonment, of extreme violence,
Mm-hmm.
torture, and abuse that the parents allowed. And
Wow.
this child will never trust its parents, ever, because it knows beyond any shadow of a doubt that they will not protect him. On the contrary, they are ready to hand him over to the dark side without a single question. This quote unquote procedure, which is nothing other than satanic ritual abuse,
Mm-hmm.
is done 96% of the time in the United States without anesthetic. The
Wow.
child is being tortured, genitally tortured, and mutilated. And what the parents have allowed to happen is unforgivable, especially if the parents do not have any regrets about it and do not even seek to say, I'm sorry, I didn't know. When I told my mother what I know about circumcision, and God help her, hopefully in her older years, she's softening. But what she said to me is, I did what I thought was best and I would do it all over again. Well, what do you think her relationship with my brother is like? With that kind of an attitude.
Mm-hmm.
When a mother doesn't even think to say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I did not know. They lied to me. They told me it was for your benefit. I thought I was doing the right thing. I mean, why is that so hard for a mother or a father to say?
Yeah.
So that you can try to resolve what your child is holding, your child who's becoming a man, who won't be able to trust or to feel safe, who may be disassociating. You know, some men will check out when they're having sex.
Mm-hmm.
They might do it through pornography images. They might just freeze as if they're in shock whenever something sexual is about to happen. But this is an imprint that stays in your neurology, whether you have, full on visual language memories of it is irrelevant.
Right.
It's in your system. It is in your body. It is in your neurology, and it drives behavior. And it also drives your nervous system responses. When a baby is being tortured genitally, all right, there's only 3 possible things any human can do when confronted with this level of abuse. They can fight, they can flee, or they can freeze. You know how animals freeze and play dead?
Yep.
Okay. Since an infant that's strapped to a torture board, arms are strapped in, legs are strapped in, sometimes a pacifier or something else. In the Jewish tradition, a rag with wine on it is shoved in his mouth so that he'll choke on his screams. All right, that infant can't fight, can't flee. What's the third choice? Freezing. Right? Parasympathetic shock, dissociation. The spirit leaves the body. It's too much for the soul to deal with this. So the soul is out of there. And now the body's on automatic pilot. And guess what? That man, that little baby that survived this torture by using parasympathetic shock as a mechanism for survival will have that later in life. When he is confronted with anything, he may freeze, be unable to speak. His spirit may leave his body. And this happens to girls too, because girls are also being tortured, but not to this extent. The boys, they're going for the boys. They're going for the masculine.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
So when you have a dad that's been circumcised,
What's crazy? Yeah, like what's crazy?
How's he gonna enact his power?
Right.
Whenever he's confronted, he's gonna freeze. He's not gonna be able to speak.
And what's crazy is that he doesn't even realize probably why he's freezing. It's because he doesn't remember, like you say, he doesn't have the memory, but it's imprinted. So I mean, and I'm thinking of all of these other problems, like psychological problems that people are having. It starts to look like it's stemming from this, or in like some form of it down in birth, like at the birthing process.
Yeah, they have studies on the boys that have been circumcised as they become adult men, and what happens to them emotionally. Like, we know that the men in the United States are having some challenges in terms of being fully present emotionally, or even recognizing their own emotions, and certainly a difficult capacity to hold space for other people's emotions, because they haven't been able to process their own. And this is very deep because it is imprinted. You, as an infant, you cannot process this level of betrayal and abandonment and abuse, so it sticks. It sticks in the nervous system and drives behavior and attitudes. And there's something called alexithymia that circumcised men develop, which is an inability to connect with their own emotions or to even name them or identify them. It's like this numbness
Right.
that occurs, which is it's a survival mechanism. It's not, like we should be condemning the men because we did this to the boys, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And there's a reason for this. And the boys that have become men need healing for this. This is birth trauma.
Yeah.
This needs to be healed. This, before these men try to go into the birth of their children, it will be very wise to bring this trauma to consciousness, recognize the root of certain behaviors, certain issues that may be occurring between a male and his beloved, okay, and seek to heal it at the root. The roots are in prenatal life and in the birth. This is the root of where our patterns begin. So we don't want the dads to be, God forbid, they're trying to do a home birth. This is what happened to me, okay? I'm married to a parasympathetic man, meaning my husband would go into dissociation when he was confronted with anything. It was a source of constant stress between us because I'm just the opposite. I fight.
Right.
I don't flee and I don't freeze, I fight. But he would freeze and it would drive me nuts. Okay, seriously.
Right.
And we go try to do a home birth. Both of us carrying massive amounts of birth trauma. Did not go well. The home birth was a disaster. My baby was born dead.
Wow.
We ended up I almost died. It was a nightmare. Okay, complete the worst possible scene. All right, but we end up with a baby in the neonatal intensive care unit where my husband is unable to even speak. When our baby is being forcefully abused by a medical doctor, and I'm standing there saying, excuse me, do you really have to handle her with such roughness? And they're threatening to have me kicked out. And my husband is like not there at all. I mean, he's there, his body's there,
but he's gone.
And he can't say a word to protect me or our baby, to stand in defense of me or our baby. And guess what? That is the beginning of the end for the marriage. Okay, because a woman can never trust that man.
Right.
To know that he will be able to protect her and her children.
Right.
And this is all on a very subconscious level, Rick.
Yeah. When you break it down like that, Jeanice, it makes so much sense because, the men and you think about it, like the women are looking for a male that's a protector. I mean, that may upset some women listening to this for some reason. Women get upset when you say that they might need a protector. I don't know why, but I'm just thinking like you're saying that this is at such a deep level inside, like inside you, that's what a lot of the problem is that men are getting this trauma. Women are too, but you said to a lesser extent, and then they are dissociating, as you were just describing. But so the woman never feels safe because she knows that he's not going to be able to protect her. It's very
that
simple.
He won't. He can't, for whatever reason. Not that he won't, but he can't. Unless he's done the work to heal his birth trauma, which neither one of them knows. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
On a conscious level, neither one of them has any idea.
Wow.
And if I use my own experience of what's going on with the women who would poo-poo the idea of needing male protection, I grew up without male protection. It's a constant source of pain for me to not have had a father that would stand up for me and protect me as a child. To make up for that, what I did when I was a young woman, a young adult, is I would never allow myself to depend on a man. I was going to be in charge of everything.
Yep.
I could handle everything all by myself.
You hear that now? Yep.
Okay. I don't need a man. I can handle everything, all the money, everything. I'll let the man depend on me just so I can feel safe, not to ever have to depend on a man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this goes on for a lot of women. Like they know that they can't depend on men. And so they make believe that they don't need to, that it doesn't matter, that they can handle things all on their own. The fact is, we are designed to be co-creative and codependent with each other.
Right.
And male protection is critical if you're planning to raise a family. We need strong men, who will be willing to whip out a gun if necessary to take somebody out that's threatening his child or his beloved. And not that the gun matters, but the idea that the woman and the children will be safe.
Yeah. The act of protecting.
Yes, and male protection.
Yeah.
This is a critical function of the male role that they're working constantly to break it down.
Yeah.
Break down the men, break down the power of the male role, make it seem like it's insignificant, or worse, that it's toxic. Masculinity is toxic.
I was just going to say that. Yep.
I mean, it's such outrageous reversal, Luciferian reversal.
Yep.
There is nothing toxic about a strong man. What is toxic is a wounded man that can't step up.
I agree. Yeah.
That's causing a lot of pain for the men and the women and the children.
Very true. Yeah, and it's so true. Because I was just talking to my wife about that there's a war on masculinity, and it's so obvious. And some people can't see it. I see it so bad, and then I can point it out. It's everywhere actually, that they're really attacking the masculinity. So it makes total sense what you're saying, that why men are failing as men and women are unhappy, and it all comes together when you start breaking it down like you are, Jeanice, because it just makes sense the way you're breaking it down, how we're got to where we are, and where it starts.
And I want to stress that this is what's happening in the United States. It's also Israeli men are extremely icky. Okay, because these are the two countries where almost all the boys are attacked in infancy. Israel and the United States are really the only two countries that do this to baby boys. If you go to a place like Russia, where circumcision is not happening, these men are not taking shit.
Right.
Okay? They're men. They are men. And the women in Russia are also very tough.
Right.
Okay? That's my experience of being there for 3 weeks. This is a very strong civilization. But the abuse of the boys is not occurring there, you see, and it makes a difference in the manhood.
Wow.
Later on.
Yeah, that's great. I just got to keep thanking you, Jeanice, for coming and having this chat. I mean, I think people are going to be shocked by it. I think some probably won't be so surprised. A lot of the people that listen, I think, at least listen to my shows, they're really, understand what's going on, and that this is a spiritual war, and that we are dealing with evil. Because I mean, you look at anything good in the world, they're inverting it. You said it perfect when you said they just invert things, and that's what they're doing with everything that's good. They just flip it, and then they sell it to you as good. That's the crazy part.
They're flipping everything, and I want to stress, that there is an attack against the male energy, but specifically against white men. And what they'll often do is they'll blame, like, let me say that there are creatures on this earth that look white, but they're not white. They're not part of the Aryan race. They're Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them look white. It's like they're chameleons. Some of them have brown skin. Some of them have darker than brown skin. Some of them have white skin. They kind of blend in wherever they are. But what they'll do is they will blame what they do on the whites and say it's the white men who have privilege, when in fact this has been Jewish privilege all along. There's nepotism everywhere. They're controlling the medical establishment, the media, our government, the legal system, the Supreme Court, right up to the Supreme Court. They control every aspect of this satanic infrastructure
Mm-hmm.
that we call civilization. And the technologies that are killing us are also Jewish created. And I spell this out in my ultrasound book. Now I leave that part of the Jewish piece to the very end of the book because I don't want people to reject the rest of the information.
Right.
You know, some people will immediately shut down as soon as you say the J word. But if you do not recognize who it is, which group that seeks to destroy us and the earth, we don't have much of a chance. You see, you've got to know who your enemy is.
That's
and you
true.
got to know how they work. You got to know everything basically about them in order to create a victory. And it's time for us to turn their system on its head. That's why I say, do not go for prenatal care. Do not go into the hospital system. Heal your birth trauma and prepare yourself
Right.
for birth. Take responsibility for your children. Don't register your marriage in their system. Don't give your life and your children over to them. This is a big mistake.
It is, and I talk to a lot of great speakers too, and I have guests on Jeanice that we speak about even homeschooling, how important that is to not put them in the, because now you're seeing, what bothers me is you're seeing them putting children into the schooling system now so young. Now you got like junior kindergarten, and then you got kindergarten, and then before that you have daycare. So I mean, they got the parents working. If you got both parents in the house, but you got whoever's taking care of the children, they're working, and then you're leaving your children, you're giving your children up to the system at such a young age. It's
This is what they've wanted.
yeah,
The
wow,
women out at home to get their hands on the children. Now the children are being introduced to sex at the age of 2 and 3.
yeah,
They're being, put in classrooms with trannies, drag queens. They're being taught about orgasm and masturbation and homosexuality and transgenderism at the age of 4 and 5. Are you serious that you're going to give your children over to these people?
yeah. I mean, they never taught me that in public school, that's for sure. I
No, they
had to
never
take
taught
sex
it
ed in
me.
high school.
But that's what they're doing right now.
Yeah,
This is happening. This is happening for at least, well, I talked about this in 2016
right.
at the Free Your Mind conference. This has been happening for years, that they're talking to very young children
Yep.
about these things, showing them very explicit images of people having intercourse, of people masturbating, of adult body parts. I'm not making this up. I got
No, I know.
slides. I've done talks. I mean, it's all,
Yeah.
it's real. It's happening.
Well, they're pretty open about having all the, like what you're speaking about. I've seen even reports on the news that they've, because they've caught a shit from it from a parent or something like that. So they kind of try to twist the story. But I mean, yeah, they're very open about it. I mean, they're not trying to hide it anymore.
Well, parents need to bulldoze these schools along with all the school administrators to the ground
Mm-hmm.
and do not put your children in the hands of other people to raise,
Right.
especially people who you do not know their morals or their beliefs or what they're going to be planting in the minds of your children. I'm sorry, but this is a big mistake. This whole, what we call civilization, is going to crash and burn
Right. Yeah.
because it's needed.
And then I'm just keeping the track on the time, Janice, because I know that I didn't want to make this one too long. I mean, I could talk to you for hours. I really could. I was looking forward to this, as I was saying earlier. And but just to bring it around, because we were talking about also how they're using everything against us, including technology. And one of the parts of the interview that I saw with you and some of the other work that you've done that really opened my eyes was the radiation that we're bathed in, and these Bluetooth signal, Wi-Fi and all of that. And I never really thought about it. You kind of talk about it a little bit, but I never really sat and thought about it until I watched a few your interview and then a few other ones. And when you start learning how dangerous all of these frequencies are and the radiation that we're being bathed in, can you talk a little on that? Because I have a cell tower so close to me. And the only reason I bring that up is because it was during the one interview that you did with Rob and Jennifer. You're saying if you live near a cell phone, you got to move. And I'm looking at my window, going, "Well, Jeanice isn't going to like when she hears that I got a cell tower like right over there."
Got to get out of there.
Yeah.
You've got to get out of there. You cannot stay there.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me that people do not have any fear about having, line of sight
Definitely.
to a cell tower.
Yep.
So we're talking about frequencies, radiation emitting frequencies that destroy your body. It may take 5, 10, 15 years for something very serious to manifest. But the destruction is happening every minute that you're exposed. Okay, and is cumulative.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you are able to get out of it. For people that can't move, what I did is I got a canopy.
Oh, right.
See,
Okay. I remember. Yeah.
I've got radiation shielding all around me. And when I was in New York, it saved my life because I couldn't really get out of it, except when I went into my canopy. And now I've made the canopy big. It's like 8 by 8. So I can fit a chair in here, a table, a bed, and I can spend my kitty boxes are in here, so my cat can be in here with me. And I can spend a lot of time in here and get out of it. And then our bodies will repair the radiation damage, especially when we sleep. But our bodies can't repair if we're chronically exposed 24/7. So trust me when I say I almost died from the radiation. I went down in 2018, and I'm lucky to be here right now. I had no money at the time. I borrowed $1,500 to get a canopy. That took me 3 years to pay off because I had no money. I paid her $50 a month. I paid her off, but I got the canopy. So even if you have no money,
there's a way.
There's a way. There's a way to protect yourself. The canopy will help. But if your line of sight to a cell tower, please manifest the money to get out of there and get yourself to a safer location.
Right.
And the only way to know if you're safe really is to get a meter.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you could show a meter because I remember you bringing that up.
There's 2 different meters. This is the more expensive meter, but let me see if I can try to get.
Yeah.
Okay. So you'll see it's at 0 point something.
Yep.
Right. So that's very low. People in situations like you are probably at 500,000.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. And you'll see the middle number it'll actually show if there's any pulses coming in here. This meter is very sensitive to the microwave pulses. So there won't be any pulses coming in here. But if I go outside the canopy, there will be pulses.
Jeanice, if you put that meter in my house, it'd probably launch like Sputnik. Probably start vibrating and explode. As if you brought that meter in, it'd probably explode in my house.
Well, it would go, if you look at the color.
Yep.
You see the green blinking light, that's the lowest. I'm guessing yours would be near the top, or at least the third level.
Wow.
Okay, because these towers, the 4G towers, the 4G light towers, 3G and 4G, they travel very far, like 25, 30 miles. You
Okay.
could be, I mean, seriously, if you're a line of sight, you're getting hit.
Right. Yeah.
So
And I'm
you
definitely
can,
line of sight. Yeah.
you can buy shielding for your windows, or even for that whole wall that's facing the tower. There's things you can do if you have to stay.
Right.
This is also part of the work that I do. I invite people to go to birthofanewearth.com and look at my work, or go to my other website, radiationdangers.com,
Okay.
and contact me at Jeanice Barcelo at yahoo.com if you need support to make the changes in your house to protect yourself. But if I were you, and I said this to Jennifer and Rob,
Yep.
get out. Get out.
Yeah.
Find a different place to live and get as far away as you can. And before you say yes to any place, get a meter. You have to walk into these places and test what's going on. And if you're walking in with a real estate agent or your phone, that's not going to work. Everybody has to have their phones off. Your car has to be far away because your car is emitting radiation. And then you walk into the structure and see what's going on in the house. If it's got a smart meter on it, that's a problem. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
What we have to deal with right now.
Yep, I agree. It's everywhere. And we're not even talking about our Bluetooth that we got going. People got going, their Wi-Fi running through their house.
It's
I mean,
so not necessary.
Yeah.
And I did a webinar earlier this year. People can buy the MP4, where I go into some detail about what's going on with the technology, but also do a demonstration of how to get yourself off Wi-Fi, what you can do about the smart meter. You know what I'm saying? How you can make the changes in your home to create a level of safety for yourself and your children and your pets.
Right.
So I'm in a house right now where I could opt out of the smart meter. So there's still a digital meter on my house here, but it's not pumping at 500,000,
Right,
every
yeah.
30 seconds. It's pumping at 1 to 5 instead. It's still lethal.
Right. Wow.
We should not be exposed to any of it.
And people are probably, and we're being bathed in this like 24/7. I
Yep.
mean, I think of people that have their phones on them. I don't know many people that never have a phone on them. Like they've always got a phone on them.
I don't. I don't own a phone.
I know. I remember you saying that. Yeah, I was like, wow. So yeah, it can be done.
Oh yeah, it can. And my car is a 2002. I wanted a car older than 2006 so as not to be in a irradiated car.
Mm-hmm.
So I found one. And I've made all the changes. I'm on a wired computer. I don't have Wi-Fi in my house at all. I have no smart devices at all. I don't need them. We don't need them.
Yep.
I had one place where I was looking to buy a mattress. They wouldn't sell to me because I didn't have a cell phone. Okay, bye.
That's weird.
I don't give a shit. Well, because I wanted to do it on credit.
Right.
But no, they wanted a cell phone. Well, I'll take my
You
business.
lost my business. That's all you got to say to them.
See you later. I'm not getting a cell phone. I'm not going to kill myself so I could buy your mattress.
I agree.
No, I'm not going to take your job if it requires me to irradiate myself. No.
Right.
No. There's a word that's very important in the English language. It's called no.
Yeah, I tell people that's the most powerful word that we have, and nobody uses it enough. No.
No,
Like,
you're not going to inject me with your noxious materials. No, you're not going to irradiate my baby with ultrasound. No, you're not going to induce me. No, you're not going to C-section me. No, you're not going to cut my son's penis. No, you're not going to clamp my baby's umbilical cord. No.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's so powerful, Denise. Just people hearing that, people have to say no to wearing a mask. I know I did that from day one, and I didn't. I would not. I would not back down. I was like, I'm not backing down from this.
When I was in New York, I got around it by wearing one of those face shields because I wasn't going to put on a mask.
Right.
I knew I knew people were breathing in stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, that's not happening. So I got one of those face shields.
That
Of
do
course,
nothing to block anything.
no. And then I left New York. I left New York shortly after this whole thing. I was like, I'm so out of it. I'm so out of here. I'm done with this. And I've lived in places where that's just not happening. It's not necessary to wear a
Right.
mask. If any store requires me to put a mask on, bye.
Bye. Yeah. No. Exactly.
No.
Yeah, that's wow. I'm telling you, like I really mean it. I could talk to you for another 2 hours. I really could because, I mean, I had a lot of people like contact me after you were on the radio show because they really, resonated with what you were saying, and I think people have to start really see opening their eyes, as you were saying, to what's going on in this world and this how satanic it is. And I know a lot of people, as I was saying, when they hear anything spiritual, satanic, they immediately shut down. But I mean, just have to open their eyes to what's going on in this world. And how can it has to be satanic. I mean, if you're being honest
Oh, it
and
is.
looking at it,
Oh, 100% it is.
100%. Yeah.
100% about it. Yeah. If you want to listen to me, go to Republic Broadcasting Network at 1 o'clock on Saturdays. I'm live just for an hour on Saturdays. And actually,
Nice.
next Saturday we have a building biologist who got sick from the radiation. There's going to be a lot of important information shared. He was on last week with me because there's a lot of information
Oh, there
that
it
needs.
is. It's a lot to take in. It really is. And I'm make sure I'll leave links in the description, guys, for all of where you can find all of Janice's information on all the links that she said here during this interview. I'll put in the description so you guys can check out her work. I hope you guys do because there's a lot of information. We've very broadly touched on a lot of stuff here today, and there's so much more we could talk about. And you're welcome to come back anytime, Janice. I swear you're welcome to come back. Just let me know if
Let me stress too, for the men, if you're interested to become a father, please consider participating in my upcoming webinar on the father's role during the childbearing year, because I'm all about trying to help empower men. We need you. Please come forth.
that'll be awesome. When's the webinar again?
The 14th of December.
Okay.
And you
Perfect.
can find the webinar, the info on birthofenewearth.com.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, and definitely. I hope some men actually go and check it out. I mean, men have to start taking their power back. It sounds so funny when you say that. I mean, but we do.
Well, as a woman, I so want to call the men forward. I need a strong man. Who's going to partner me? Right? I mean, look at how strong I am. So we need strong men. We need you. Please come forward. Please.
Right. Perfect. Yeah, I'll definitely make sure that I get that information out to people, Janice, so they can. What about your books? Are people able to get your books in PDF or hard copy? Any?
You can get the birth trauma book and the ultrasound book in paperback or PDF. The wireless radiation book is only available in PDF right now.
Okay.
I haven't got the paperbacks in order yet because I was banned on Amazon earlier this year, so I had to regroup and.
Jeez.
It's been quite. Yeah, I've been blocked.
I know you've probably been blocked off so many platforms.
Yeah, and I was back on Twitter after Elon bought it for 2 weeks, and then they blocked me there.
Wow. I didn't think they would block you on Twitter. Now I was just going to suggest Twitter to you.
They did because I said something like, can we please dispense with this fake Jewish Holocaust thing and get down to the basics and the truth, and let's admit that more than 16 million Germans were raped, tortured, slaughtered, made homeless, literally incinerated, melted to the ground at the hands of the the allies. All right. And dispense with the lies about 6 million Jews dying. It's a lie. Jewish sources and Red Cross numbers indicate that less than 300,000 Jews died during World War II. Okay? Jewish sources indicate that. The Jewish Almanac. Let's dispense with the lies, folks, and get down to the truth. Who is the enemy? Who lies about everything and inverts everything, making the innocent Germans look as if they are the evil ones, when just the opposite is the case.
Right.
And
Wow.
there's a whole lot I could say about that too.
For
But
sure, and that's, well, that's why they pulled you off Twitter then. But
yeah, because you can't say anything about the Jews.
yeah, you can't say anything about anything anyway. That's what I was saying before I got you on, like right before I introduced you, I was saying like, I mean, you and you know as well. You just brought it up that you're getting pulled off all the platforms too, and it's getting
Yeah.
so hard to get truth out. That
I'm doing it anyway,
me too.
except the radio, except the radio, Rick, like you said,
I
right?
love it. I love radio for that because there's no boundaries. Like you can say what you want. You can talk about. There's no code words. And when you're doing these type of video interviews, if you want to get them on any platform that people are looking at, you got to be so careful, like what you're
Well,
saying.
get over to Brighteon and
Right.
BitChute, you know.
I like Rumble. Rumble seems to be good for me, at least so far.
Yeah,
Odyssey's
I'm not
good.
sure about Rumble, but I know Brighteon and BitChute. Brighteon may turn any minute because Mike Adams is a shell.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's where I'm posting my videos right now. It's my
Perfect.
channels. My channels are Birth of a New Earth for
Okay.
people.
Definitely. I'll make sure I put links for everything. Thank you so much, Jeanice. I wish I mean, I have radio coming up, so I wish I had more time to chat with you.
I got you, Rick. No worries. It's great to talk with
You
you.
too. Thank you so much. And as I said, you're welcome back anytime, Jeanice.
Okay, hon.
All right.
You
Take care. All right. Take
Bye for
care.
now.
Bye bye.
Rick.
Wow. I tell you, that was a powerful interview, guys. And I really mean it when I say that Jeanice is welcome back anytime to come and discuss more things, because I tell you, I really, when you start sitting back and thinking about it, guys, and I've been saying there's a war on masculinity for a long time now, and some people get really bent out of shape when you say that, but I think if people are being honest, they're seeing it, and when I was really honest when I was telling you at the beginning, like, I mean, guys, I wonder how many men really think about birth and stuff like that. Like, I think they, as I was saying, they kind of know that, help their wife along or their girlfriend along as they're pregnant. I mean, I'm not saying they're not trying to help, but I mean, really dive into it. And it wasn't until I started watching a couple presentations and some interviews on conscious parenting and the birthing process. I never knew all the things that they did to babies when they're being born and what they're doing to the mothers. And then when I'm brought up to believe that ultrasounds, there's nothing, they're safe. That's what you hear. They're perfectly safe. And then when you really start digging below the surface into the information, you realize that they're not safe, and that there hasn't been any really major studies on them. And that's just one part of it. And then you see how now C-sections are all the thing, like it's crazy. But I think a lot of people don't think about it. At least a lot of guys, I didn't. I can only speak for myself. I didn't really put a lot of thought into that at one time like I do now. But the circumcision thing always was I just didn't get it. And then when I have people tell me that, as I was telling Jeanice, that the baby doesn't remember and they don't feel it, and I just, like, I don't know, like, I always had a problem with that. And they may not, like Jeanice said, mentally remember it. There may not be a memory in their head that they can draw upon, but it is definitely imprinted. And I totally get that, because, I mean, and what an experience that you have that's your first, when you start thinking that these are the first things that the baby is experiencing as they're born, and even before birth, as Jeanice was breaking down, like right up to the conception part, like, wow. I mean, we really are living in a satanic world ran by satanic people. And I don't know how to break it. I can't say it any more simple than that. And if you're opening your eyes and being honest, anyone can see that they are inverting everything good. And then the trick they're pulling on people is they're inverting it and then selling it as good and a great thing. And people are buying it, which is... I tell you guys, I could just sit here and rant about this, and I don't want to do that, because I do that on my radio show. So if you want to hear me rant, we'll go to my radio show and rant. But I do want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to this. I will make sure I leave links for all those sites that Jeanice mentioned during the interview, so you can go and check out her work. I hope you do. Hope you check out her webinars and get her books, and really start looking into this, because it'll be an eye-opener if you do, guys. So thank you so much. I just want to wrap up by saying that I was mentioning Revolution Radio, so if you guys want to enjoy radio and some great interviews, please check me out at Revolution Radio. It's at freedomslips.com. And as I was saying, you can catch me on Friday nights in the Hawk's Nest, usually about 8:30 to I get on there somewhere 8:30, 9ish, and I go usually for about 3 hours. And then you can also find me on Saturday evenings, and that is the Crypt Rick and Jonathan show. And I tell you, Jonathan's doing an amazing job as a co-host. I really enjoy doing that show. And that is on Saturdays, Studio B, from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then you can also catch my show, the Crypt Rick I've Been Thinking show, and that's on Mondays, and it is in Studio A, and it is also from 6 to 8 p.m. Lots of great shows lined up for both. Definitely for Jonathan and I's show, we have some amazing guests lined up, and I got some amazing guests lined up for my show on Mondays, so please check it out, guys, freedomslips.com. And I just want to thank you guys once again for all the support and your continued support and encouragement, because it means the world to me, guys, and you checking out these videos and listening to the radio show means the world to me. Thank you so much, and I'll be back very soon with another interview. So take care, guys, and stay safe, and I will see you soon. Peace, guys.
Are you interested in the paranormal? Murder mysteries, cryptocurrency, and thought-provoking interviews? Then check out Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking on YouTube, or every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Studio A at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Welcome to the Crypt.